Deathmatch Classic. I wouldn't be surprised if you've never even heard of it, or if the only time you have is seeing it lurking in the bowels of your Steam library because you bought the Valve Complete Pack a few years ago, probably when it was on sale or something. This game's obscurity has rendered it almost completely dead, with few servers and even fewer players. But these servers, with their unparalleled maps and plugins, can still harbor something of interest, so we might as well take a look. This first one was hosted by Gold Source Saturdays, who you'll be seeing a lot of in this video.
Gordon Freeman.
They
It's
had
good to
one
see
of the
you.
largest map repositories of any of the servers I visited. On top of that, plenty of the ones they did have were pretty funny or otherwise unique. You may have also noticed Gold Source Saturdays in some of my other videos, because, as indicated by their welcome message, they host servers for pretty much every Gold Source game that supports it. Anyways, the name of this one was Ballpark, and, well, it wasn't lying. Like most ballparks in the United States, it featured a bunch of people running around with guns shooting each other. It also had the classic rocket launcher trapped in a glass enclosure, which could only be accessed by running all the bases. Also, like most real-life ballparks, this one had its gravity lowered significantly. So I hopped around for a while, practicing my airshotting abilities. It's also worth noting that all of the enemies on this server, as well as most of the other ones you'll see throughout this video, were just bots. Eventually, I inadvertently collided with one of the stadium lights, which transported me to this area. I was instantly plunged into some rather friendly lava, but I managed to make my way out through the adjacent green portal. I was intrigued at this point, so I decided to test the other lights.
Loading environment on to your computer.
This one kinda lived up to its name, although it was really more like an excavator site or quarry than anything. It also didn't really agree with my computer, particularly in the frame rate department. The slight drizzle that was always happening on this map, as well as the fact that all of the players were stuffed into such a tiny environment together, meant that the sound was somewhat overbearing. Eventually, I found a way to eliminate all of the bots from the server using a chat command. Finally able to think, my eyes immediately gravitated towards the 4 targets that were scattered around the map. Upon nailing all of them, with the nail gun in this case, a small pit opened up in the center of the map. Within it was, as always, the coveted rocket launcher. The first time I entered this pit, I accidentally fell in the surrounding waters, which apparently was a death trap from which there was no escape. The only other thing of interest was the rain. It may be somewhat difficult to see, but upon closer inspection, you can tell that the rain is simply a bunch of billboards that have been copied and pasted throughout the map. Billboards, if you don't know, are effectively sprites that always face where the player is facing. They are often used for particle effects and other things, such as grass on the ground sometimes. This map's rain is a somewhat humorous example of that. When you die in any Gold Source game, your perspective tilts, as you can see here. But because the rain will always face where you're facing, it doesn't actually change its orientation. So it looks like the raindrops are falling sideways, even though they actually just haven't changed it at all. Anyway, back to the maps. This one was overall pretty standard, but I thought I would use it so that I could better contrast the normal surroundings against some of the humorous player models featured in this server. I first ran into the real Duke Nukem 3-dimensional. Then I found SpongeBob, who I had to put out of his misery. There was a multicolored Barney, as well as this gentlemanly fellow with a rocket launcher. I spawned into this one in a pitch-black back alleyway. I eventually made my way out to this area, which hosted a bridge over some rather troubled waters. Into those waters I went, but I found that I could not escape by the advent of land. I later found out that the only way to jump out is using the bridge. In any case, I respawned at this side area filled with lava. I hopped around for a bit, and then made my way back to the main area with the advent of this rotating platform-esque thing. The castle wasn't of that much interest, although I did manage to platform my way to an ATV suit along with some other pickups. You can never have your gold source game without a heaping helping of 2 Fort, so here we are, I guess. I spawned on this cyan rooftop and quickly made my way onto the roof of the bridge. Adorning this side was a Steam comment which said this. I'm sure there's a Joker reference that I'm missing here. This version of 2 Fort shared many similarities with the one that we all know and hate. In particular, it was a deathmatch map, which, if you've ever played 2 Fort correctly, you know that there are no objectives. There wasn't much to see in the water, there were no tunnels or anything, but there was this underneath the map for some reason. This sign advertised the release of Glup Shido on Disney+. And speaking of Glup Shido, I spawned in this dark cavernous area and quickly made my way out with a lightning gun. There was this area with a stationary tram ride and a few pickups. There was a side area with this, but the thing that caught my attention most was this bot, which was using this as its player model. I could make many jokes here, but I will refrain from doing so. I'm not really even sure what to say about this one. The map was almost completely vacant, aside from a few columns interspersed here and there. There was this on the wall, which I thought might have some kind of secret behind it, but no, it's just a decal. I traveled down the nearby stairs and made my way over to this outside glass enclosure type area. Inside, there was this exceedingly spacious room, but nothing else. I wanted to make sure I wasn't missing any secrets on this map, so I opened it up in a local server and flew around to also find nothing. I did find that this corner had a poorly aligned seam, so that's something. To continue the themes of maps with checkerboard floors, next we'll take a look at Storage 17. Now, if you can excuse the lack of lighting, the oddly placed pillars, the fuel storage vending machine, and the weird mirror decals, then you'll see what is truly most odd about this map. Above this door, and on the wall opposite it, are signs that would indicate this to be Storage Area 1, not 17. Absolutely unforgivable. So here we are again. It's always such a pleasure to be on Ice World. This one was surprisingly not a deathmatch map as you would expect, but in fact a CTF map. Aside from the addition of the standard Deathmatch classic pickups, as well as its conversion into a CTF map with the accompanying flags, this version of Ice World had essentially nothing different about it from the original. This server was running an interesting plugin though. Seemingly at random, these rune pickups could spawn, which could grant the player a variety of effects. After capturing the flags a few times, and without much else to do, I practiced a few pogos on top of these platforms and then left.
Get ready to.
This one was another CTF map, running on the same server as Ice World. I spawned in one of these cylindrical pod chambers, blackened this cube, and sensing that there was nothing much else to do inside, I went out. I crossed this giant chasm-type area and wandered into the enemy's base. I noticed these elevator-type platforms and decided to see what would happen if I stood beneath one that was falling. Usually in these cases, the platform either immediately crushes the player or it senses an obstacle in its path and retreats upward. Instead, here I got trapped beneath it by this sort of bezel around the edge as it slowly drained my suit power. Eventually, it stopped hurting me, and I somehow seemed to phase through it with a jump. But alas, I still had no way out. This next map is one of only 2 jump/trick maps that I decided to actually put in the video. Many of the others I visited didn't have much of interest. As for this one, I first spawned in this spacious wood and brick room and walked the plank across this star field. The next room presented similarly little challenge, and this left me at this one. This one required extremely tight air strafing, and although I did manage to achieve 1 success, the limited health afforded to me by the server meant that I could not continue. What's this? Has Valve finally allowed me to take out my frustrations on their user interface? No, I have simply deceived you once again. You are simply looking at the unrefreshed void, for I have loaded this map in a local game server to see if I had missed anything. A quick fly-through revealed that no, I had not missed anything. Had I completed the air strafing task, I would have just been left at a dead end anyway. This was another trick and jump map. I first ascended these platforms with very real, not fake at all, rocket jumping prowess. In all honesty though, this map was pretty standard in terms of being a jump map. Here's a quick fly through just so you can see what it had to offer. This map was exceedingly large. It primarily consisted of a bunch of floating platforms connected by similarly floating bridges. One of the most identifying attributes of this map was that whenever someone fell off the edge, they would emit this goofy scream. You'll hear it pretty frequently in this segment. Eventually, I made my way into this upper area, which housed plenty of pickups, and then into this interior area with a lightning gun. The two portals in the room transported me to a dark back passageway, as well as this completely flat plain. I ran around for a while longer, trying my aim out on the bots, until I noticed that one bot seemed to be doing particularly well. This was not a bot, and was in fact a player that had joined the server. Thus, I did the only thing I could do. I proceeded to relentlessly hunt him down. This one had a pretty classic Quake look to it. I spawned in and saw a pool of water with a few pickups in it. Then I heard something. I traced the droning sounds over to this other pool of water. It seemed that the bot's pathfinding on this map was particularly broken. Any bots that foolishly found themselves in one of the many pools of water throughout the map were doomed either to drown or to be killed by the player. Well, I do like free kills. Anyway, I found my way rightward and into this other pool of water. In it, I found and eliminated the civilian, as well as this Team Fortress 2-esque character. This room was pretty interesting, and featured probably one of the nicest visual effects I've seen in any Gold Source map. I did find this lightning gun hidden within one of the walls, but try as I might, I could not find much else of interest. This one appeared to transpire in a dusty Old West-style town, which seemed to be built within a canyon or valley. I'm not really sure what the map name had to do with the map contents. I looked up Cool Turtle on Google, and all I got was a respirator and images of actual cool turtles. I first decided to examine the skybox, and then I went into the actual town to engage in one of the map's many platforming segments. After failing at this jump for quite a while, the path brought me to a Ring of Shadows power-up. This little room made an interesting use of ramps to up the difficulty of its platforming. This window teleported me to an upper cliff area, which had a few wooden overhangs that led me to a lightning gun. The last area of significance was this even higher up, more spacious area. It had a few pickups, but I didn't get much time to explore it before the map changed. Overall, I found this one pretty charming, both in its aesthetics and gameplay. The many instances of platforming gave plenty of opportunities for risk and reward gameplay. You could always take your time platforming from one crate to another in the hopes of getting a nice power-up, but then you'd be placing yourself at higher risk of being eliminated by other players. This one, thankfully, lived up to its name. Upon spawning in, you could see that, yeah, the map is made of Legos. The fact that pretty much everything in the Gold Source engine is a block anyway does aid these types of maps immensely. Fortunately, these digital Legos did not hurt as much to walk on as real ones. Otherwise, I think this one pretty much just speaks for itself. I will say, though, that the plane suspended high in the air did seem to be particularly lifelike. This one was a map, I guess. I spawned into an oversized truck, more of which you will see later, and pushed my head up against this wall. It's somewhat difficult to tell here, but it seemed the wall allowed you to peek into the void, which was rather nauseating. Moreover, only the exterior of that wall appeared to be textured, with the inside being see-through, I guess? Kind of an odd error to make. The constant combat noise from all the bots was rather annoying, so to facilitate exploration, I disposed of them. With all the bots and distractions removed, we can now see the true silliness of this map on display. I first used these, I guess, crates of soda cans to platform up to a vantage point. From there, I could see the trucks in all their glory. These trucks were the common models that appear all throughout the original Half-Life. In this map, though, they have been dilated and squished down into a chode-like form. They were pretty humorous to look at. This map was also pretty boxed in. With this one, I spawned in, eliminated a civilian, and then read the helpful sign on the wall. After exploring the map further, I realized that this was, in fact, just Aztec. Aside from the addition of the various power-ups and weapons associated with Deathmatch Classic, there wasn't much to see here that was different from the Counter-Strike version. I'll let the visuals here do most of the talking, even though they're not that talkative. Now for a couple of sci-fi-esque maps. This first one transpired in an arena of gray steel walls, LED lights, and blue portals. I spawned in and noticed, to my shock and appallment, that someone else had actually joined the server. For much of my exploration of this server, I was running away from their relentless pursuit. Trotting around, I noticed a few decals exclusive to this map, such as this floor one, which I hit a few times with my crowbar, as well as this power symbol on one of the walls. I halted for a moment to examine one of the teleporters, which was quite intricately constructed, but I was soon abruptly dislodged from my examination by the other person. To get them off my trail, I bounced on this platform a couple times. A while later, I found my pursuer up against this wall. I approached them with caution and unease, staying at a distance, for I knew not what their intentions were. Anticlimactically, though, they just left. This one was cosmetically similar to the last, with its gray walls and white lights. I first made sure to dispose of all the bots for a calmer experience, and then went on my way. I first locomoted towards the back of the map, where I catapulted myself over this chasm to reach a lightning gun. While boogieing to the background music, I stumbled upon this elevator. This transported me to somewhat of a subterranean storage tunnel. Aside from the visual design of the sides of the tunnel, there wasn't much to see. The primary exits for this area were a couple of grounded teleporters that would take you back up to the center of the map when stepped on. This one consisted of an expansive, multi-tiered arena. It wasn't especially interesting in any single way, but I'm mainly leaving it in because there were a couple of Spider-Men sliding around, which was somewhat funny. Last, but not quite least, was a DMC Go. This was a fitting name, for as soon as I spawned, I went. I raced through stucco walls and tile floors and found this semi-spiral staircase. I stopped to examine the brushwork, but the bots were being rather annoying with their trying to kill me shenanigans, so I had to go on my way. I was about to enter this room, but noticed that bot seemed to be standing still. Upon closer inspection and eliminating the other bot, it actually appeared that these models just bugged out when they died. They had no collision and were completely innocuous, so I gave him a handshake and he vanished. And that's about all the servers and maps I could find. I did cut quite a few recordings from this one because I realized it's probably better to just not include the most boring maps and servers in the video. As always, don't forget to like if you enjoyed the video, and subscribe if you want to see more. And don't forget to tune in next time for a look at what might be Valve's most unpopular and abandoned first-person shooter.